Hey friends, it's Rachel. Welcome back to my channel, and in today's video I wanted to talk about my goals for 2022. I have divided these goals into three categories: writing, reading, and my goals for AuthorTube this year. So without further ado, let's jump right into it and start with AuthorTube. What do I want to happen with my channel this year? I really only have one goal for YouTube, and that is to reach 100 subscribers by the end of the year. I think I can probably do even better than that, but 100 is just the baseline that I hope to get to, because then you get the personalized link name, I think, or whatever that is. So I would like to hit at least 100 subscribers. Obviously, I want to get as many as possible, but that is my set goal for this year. The other goals aren't really AuthorTube related so much as just author platform and online presence and growing that, but I would like to get my author website set up this year and my newsletter as well. I have no idea as of yet what I would put into a newsletter since I don't have any books out currently, but that is one reason why I haven't yet gotten a newsletter set up, but I want to get one established by the end of the year. I also hope to get my official author photograph taken sometime this year and my bio typed up, just little prep work things that need to be done before I can publish a book. As far as writing goals go, I really only have one goal, and that is to write 4 books this year. I typically write 4 books every year, and so I'm planning to do that again. The books that I am going to be writing this year, though, have changed. Originally, I had intended to try to traditionally publish my historical mysteries, and so if I was going to query the first book in my Victorian mystery series this year, it would need to be rewritten and polished. So originally that was the first book that I was going to write this year, but I have since scrapped that idea, at least for the time being, so I will not be rewriting that book. Instead, I will write the 11th book in my Victorian mystery series and just continue onward with that. I kind of want to type out all of the books that I have intended for this series and get the plots established, and then I feel more comfortable going back at the beginning and rewriting them and refining them into what I want them to ultimately be. I also have my 1920s mystery series, which I started back in November for NaNoWriMo, and I am currently in the process of editing that first draft, so I will be writing the second book in that series this year as well. And then I have 2 fantasy books that I would like to write. One of them is the first book in a fantasy duology that I have planned, and I intend, as of this moment, for that to be the first book that I publish. I've always kind of wanted it to be the first book that I publish, and if I do choose to pursue the self-published route, I can certainly make that a reality, because it's up to me whichever book I publish first. I last wrote this book in 2019, and I'm still pretty happy with the way that it is written. It's just that it could use a little bit more polish. It could be made even better than it is right now, so that's what I hope to do with that book. I feel like I've been writing this book forever and that it may never be done, because I have been writing this book, honestly, at this point for half of my entire life. And every time I rewrite it, it gets a little bit better, but I've never felt that it's been perfect. Not that any book is perfect, but you know what I mean. So it is my hope that this time when I go to rewrite this book, it will finally be it. It will be done. It will be the way that I want it to be, and I will be comfortable publishing it finally and getting it out into the world. And then the last fantasy book that I want to write this year is going to be most likely my Nano project. I have lots more research I want to do before I write it. I've got other books I want to read before I write this one. So I think hopefully by the time the next NaNoWriMo comes around, I will be ready to write this book. I wrote the first book of this duology in 2020, like at the end of summer. So it will have been 2 years since I wrote book 1 by the time I finally get around to writing book 2. Up until this point, this book has never had a book 2. It was always just a standalone, and I quite frankly don't know that it needs a book 2. I think it does, but I'm not sure that I will know that for certain until I write book 2 and see what I think of it. I am still very happy with the way that the first book turned out. I'm blown away by how that turned out. I'm very happy with that. I had not touched that book for 4 years prior to rewriting it in 2020, and I think that was definitely the right thing to do. I had just kind of let it sit and simmer in the back of my mind, and these scenes and ideas just came to me over those 4 years, and I finally put them in the order that I wanted them to appear in the book, and it was honestly the easiest thing I've ever written. And it was also the first draft that I've written using an outline, and that's kind of what sold me on outlining from here on out. I don't expect some of my other books will be that easy to outline, but that one was just the easiest thing I've ever written, and I'm very grateful for that. There's only one thing that I really want to change in that book, and I would be happy publishing it right now, I think, because I'm just that happy with it. However, I'm not sure how book 2 will turn out, so we'll have to wait and see for that. Hopefully it will be good, but it might just be a mess because, like I said, it's never had a book 2 before, so I'm just completely working in all new territory. Other than, I mean, the world is established and the characters are established, but the events are most definitely not. So it will be interesting to see what happens with that. The only thing I'm not thrilled about this writing sort of schedule and what I'm going to be writing this year is that I'm only going to be writing 2 mysteries. And usually I do only write 2 mysteries per year, but the problem is that I now have 2 mystery series instead of just 1. So in the past, I would write 2 mysteries in my Victorian mystery series, and now I'm only going to be able to write 1 because I also have to write 1 in my 1920s series, which means that I will not be able to continue onward with my 1920 series as quickly as I did with my Victorian series. And I don't know that that really matters, but there's something that bothers me about leaving it for so long that I'm only going to be adding a new addition to the series once per year instead of twice per year. It probably ultimately doesn't matter, but this is just one of those nitpicky little things that my brain gets fixated on and just starts worrying away at. So we'll see what happens. It's probably going to be fine. And then we come to my reading goals. Now, I don't set a specific number of books that I want to read per year. I just end up reading as many as I end up reading at the end of the year. However, there are some specific things that I want to get done or address this year, starting with Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell. This book has been sitting behind me in the vast majority of my videos, and that is not because I think it's phenomenal and that it earned a place on my shelf. It is because I have not finished reading this yet. I intended to read this in October, and I had started to read it, and I thought, this book is very boring. So I'm not sure if I'm going to read it or if I'm just going to DNF it. I do still want to give it a chance and try to read a bit more of it because I've heard great things about this book, but my initial impression was it was boring and I didn't get very far into it. I'm not a fan of the footnotes that are all over the place. In my opinion, while they do probably add something to the world, it's just too much. We don't need that. They read like a textbook. They're very dry and factual, and I am honestly not going to read the footnotes if I do read this book all the way through because it would just take me way too much time. This book is already very long, and I just don't really care about the footnotes. I feel like if you have to put something like this in a footnote, maybe it's not relevant to the story and unnecessary, and I don't actually have to read it. Some people are probably going to be upset with that, but I am just not a fan of footnotes in fiction like this. There were footnotes in the Bartimaeus series by Jonathan Stroud, but I thought that they worked because they were written in first person, and they conveyed information that was actually helpful for the reader to know, as well as being imparted through Bartimaeus' sarcastic, snarky temperament, and it was just entertaining to read, whereas these, being written like a textbook, are not. So I need to come to some sort of decision about this book at some point this year. Am I going to read it? Am I going to DNF it? So I can finally decide if it's going to stay on my shelf or not. But the fact that I have started it and have not finished it yet really bothers me. But it's very long and I don't know when I'm going to get around to it. Another book that I do definitely need to read at some point this year is The World Remade by J.G. Meyer. This book is about America's role in World War I, and because it has relevance to my 1920 series, I need to read it because I think that it will help me develop that more. I have a character in my 1920 series who served in World War I, and I hope that this book will help me understand what exactly America did when they finally went over there, and, you know, when we left and the soldiers came back home and what they faced over there and how it affected them and all that sort of stuff. J.G. Meyer also has a book about World War I in general, and I do also hope to read that at some point just because I find the topic interesting, but this one in particular I need to read because it has relevance to my book series. I also need to read this book, also for the same reason, because it has relevance to my 1920 series, and I think that it will help me formulate one of the mysteries that I have in mind. So I need to read this, most likely before I write the second 1920s mystery, which will probably be late summer if I stick to my schedule and everything goes according to plan, which it probably will not, but I need to read this before I write the second book. And the last big reading goal that I have, and I have no idea when I'm going to get around to it, but I have a whole year, so I should be able to manage it. I want to read the entire Lord of the Rings trilogy. Now, I have read book 1, I don't remember much about it. I got partway into book 2 and then just DNF'd it because Treebeard talks a lot. But I do want to finally read all of this and be able to give my thoughts on it because, as with Harry Potter, this is a book that greatly influenced the fantasy genre, and the movies have influenced me as a writer, so I feel like it's sort of something that I have to do. Even if I didn't want to do it, it kind of is like a duty that I have to do because it has had such a huge impact on the fantasy genre, and I write fantasy and I read fantasy, and so I want to read the entire thing for myself and see what I think of it. I think it's probably going to be quite long and a little bit slow-paced because the writing style of back then is just different from now. But it's something that I want to do, and I want to see what I think of the completed trilogy for myself. So you can look forward to that video sometime this year. But yeah, that is it. Those are the specific goals that I have for this year. I have some other less specific goals that are not as important as some of these, but these are the main ones that I definitely want to get done. So I think it will be interesting to look back at this video at the end of the year and see how many of these goals that I managed to achieve. That is the end of this video. If you enjoyed, feel free to leave a like, comment, and subscribe so you don't miss out on any future content. I upload every week, and I appreciate each and every one of you. Thank you all for watching, and I will see you in the next video. Bye!